Hi, this is Bob Papa, voice of the New York Football Giants, and this is the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast in association with Andy's Man Club. Remember, lads, it is okay to talk. As you can see, we are 66% British, 33% Irish, but as always, 100% Duck Giants. Dan is in Cyprus, sunning it up. Little pre-season soiree for him and the wife. So I hope he's enjoying that. However, we are here. Boys, it's the first preview pod of the season. Like we're back into real stuff now. We're back into the meat and drink now. How are we doing?
Yeah, not bad. Kind of excited, anxious, apprehensive, all kind of feelings. You know, it's good to be back and like kind of we've done shows over the last couple of weeks, few months, and all that. But it's kind of like okay, yeah, business time now, kind of thing. Kind of how the players must sort of start to feel, but obviously on a higher level for them.
Yeah, it's just good to be back. I mean, only a few days now before week one of this 2024 NFL season. Good evening, James. Good to have you watching. And it's so all the build-ups leading up to this now. We've talked the talk. We've talked about so much about the team and where we're going. And I said, even lads, but like I'm excited, and I want to just see some good football this year. Let's crack on. I mean, it's a shame Dan can't be with us this evening, but I hope he's watching. Shout out to Dan, you missed, mate. But so let's get this on.
But before we start, there's a very important question in the comments. Kev, why did you allow a Cowboys fan into your man cave the other day?
Yes, it was painful to allow. So for people who don't know, I've my fantasy group have been doing it for about 15 years. And we have fans from all places, including Dallas, which is very, very annoying. But we do a live draft every year. And we did a live draft in my man cave, or the Big Blue UK and Ireland War Room, as it's also known as. And posted up a couple of photos, and he was in there with his Cowboys top on. I've asked him not to wear it in my presence, but he had to wear it that evening in Egypt.
There we go. So before we begin, if you are watching this live on YouTube or on X or on Twitch, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please do so already. Make sure you're in the comments. We always appreciate it. And the comment section has been absolutely banging this pre-season. So a massive thank you to everybody. But let's start off with a bit of news.
Just before we do that, there's a new feature I'm bringing to the podcast now. Kevin Craig know nothing about this, but it's just something
left field.
Kind of something we can just discuss, like kind of a weekly thing. And I just thought that it's important, and it kind of relates to some of the things we do. And that's just every week we're going to kind of give a college update on how our college teams are doing. I'm Virginia.
There is only one reason that we're doing this.
Wow,
there is only one reason that we're doing this.
Well, anyway, Penn State won. West Virginia on the road beat them 34-12. Kev, how did Notre Dame get on?
Well, Notre Dame started off his college campaign by going in to College Station down at Texas A&M SEC country. Difficult place to go with the 12th man there and everything. And they came away with a 23-13 win.
Nice. And then Craig, obviously, I know FSU had a poor game in Dublin a couple of weeks ago, but that's kind of, you're in Ireland, all sorts of things can mess with your head and everything. You're back on home field, back in America. How did you get on against Boston College?
I'm not sure. I don't really know if I even looked at the score. 13-28 loss against Boston College is not great. We've got another DJ under centre at FSU, and he might be worse.
Oh my God, that's what you call calling an audible. That is bringing that in. I love it.
God Almighty, that's like. I think the only way I can describe that is a zero blitz right on me right there, straight away.
Oh no, Craig's been getting pelties in the group chat pretty much from me every single day this week. I think I've mentioned something Florida State related just to wind him up a little bit, and that's why that's why I just thought we'd do that at the start of this episode.
Admittedly, though, I think that's such a good little thing for us to do every week because we can at least one either have bragging rights or two maybe highlight a player. So yeah, I like that. We'll keep that going forward.
Took him off. Yeah, he's gone.
He's thrown him now. Thrown him.
Last week all over again. Right, Giants news. Let's talk Giants news. Last Friday, it was revealed by Jordan Schultz that the Giants have brought back ex-cornerback Adoree Jackson for a physical, and only a few hours later, that deal was done. About 11:23 Eastern that evening, the contract was signed, and Adoree Jackson is a Giant once again. Excuse me. Now, admittedly, back in January, I will hold my hands up. I said I did not want Adoree back after 2023. However, the cornerback room looks thin, ropey, a bit uninspiring. So the return is welcomed now. Don't forget, during Hard Knocks, it was repeatedly said from episode 1 that corner was in need, with Joe Shane even joking that he might have to play there. And I think we almost got close to that actually happening by the sounds of things. But fair play to both Daves and Shane for saying that they had a plan for the cornerback position when they were grilled last week before the signing was announced. And addressing that position in need. If Adoree disliked the Giants or disliked the way that things had gone, he wouldn't be back. Now we've got an interview series episode coming out tomorrow with Sean from New York Giants Rush, and I had the opportunity to speak to him a few days ago, and he mentioned that Adoree's issues last season could have been a Wink issue. It could have been that he didn't respect Wink, Wink didn't respect him. There was a little bit of animosity there, and when you don't like somebody and you have that animosity between you, you kind of want to say F you, but not make it obvious. And maybe that was part of Adoree's lack of effort was, I'm not going to put the effort in for this guy. I'm just going to maybe just coast through. But another thing that's quite interesting is that Daves is mentioning Adoree as a potential punt returner as he brings his fitness back up scratch, and he was videoed catching a few punts in we're not even in training camp, in just
practice.
Practice. So with Gunner still dealing with a groin injury in week 1, obviously fast approaching, that could happen. But Shane, what's your overall thoughts now with Adoree being a Giant again?
Yeah, I mean, something needed to be done at the position. We just couldn't go into this season, with all due respect, to just relying on Flott and McLeod. So we needed to bring somebody in. I think in terms of him returning points, it's not that much of a big deal now because he's not CB1. That was what the problem was, him returning punts as CB1. Then he got injured and we lost our CB1. So it's not going to be as much of an issue this time, all being well. And I believe he also did some pump coverage when he was back in college all them years ago now. But I think at the same time, I think a little bit of, I'll give a bit of credit to Adoree Jackson. He showed a bit of maturity, which, let's be honest, NFL players aren't really known for, and a bit of professionalism, because the Giants obviously gone back to him and said, look, we'll bring you back for a year. It's not exactly an amazing contract either, from what I understand. And he could have just simply gone, nah, screw you. If you wanted me, you should have done it, and blah, blah, blah. But obviously there's a level of professionalism, maturity, and dare I say even respect there for him to turn around and say, yeah, okay, you know what? He might have a chip on his shoulder, might have a point to prove, but he could have just ignored all that and gone, nah, screw you. You didn't renew me, you didn't extend me, sort it somewhere else, which he didn't do. So I do tip my hat to me in that regard.
Kev, what do you think on this Adoree situation? Because you look at players like Slayton, who tweeted out pretty much immediately that he was over the moon to have Adoree back. So he's obviously well liked within the building.
I mean, definitely. He said, and also he said in the interview, like, it's more like a family reunion coming back. There's no animosity between the two sides. He went out to see what deals he could get. I mean, just look at the contract here. Dan Duggan tweeted it out. It's a 1 year, 1.75 million, zero guaranteed. Was it 1.5 base salary? Can earn 250,000 per game in bonuses. So that is incredible business from the Giants as well, in my opinion, to bring someone back like Adoree. I mean, if you looked at all the cornerbacks, and we were discussing it in group chats and stuff about, like, CB2 seemed to be a glaring hole. And the free agents that were out there, it was kind of like Adoree made the most sense. He made the most sense, but we all thought bridges were burned and the number was given away. So everyone thought, well, he'd given 22 away, so how can he come back? But it didn't seem not like that at all. I mean, everything seems to be like okay between both sides. And I actually think, again, it makes too much sense for him to come back. And the fielding of punts and stuff like that, I think that's more him being thrown in there, allowed to catch the ball, get a feel for the ball in his hands again, just do a little bit of something that won't get him too injured in a controlled environment. I think once Leslie comes back, you'll see him doing punt return duties, and Adoree will be fighting for that CB2 spot opposite Banks.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest beneficiaries of this whole deal is going to be Deontay Banks. It's difficult when you're a rookie and you're the number one dog in a room that is not old at all. You look at Nick McLeod. McLeod must only be 25. Trey Hawkins came in at the same time as Banks. Cordell Flott is one of the youngest on the roster still in his third year, amazingly. So the addition of Adoree as a veteran in that room it's kind of in that same way as what we said about Justin Pugh when he came into that offensive line room last year, in that having that veteran presence in there, having that person in there who can really break down a defense. When you're reviewing tape, that's a massive, massive plus to have someone like that in there. So I really, really do think that, and I hold my hands up. I really do think this is a really good move by the front office. And it does kind of show by the comments that we're getting as well. James is saying at the contract value, it's 100%. It's a good move. Steve, cheap enough, hardly the worst stopgap. Needed a CB2 upgrade. And James makes a really good point there. He's only 28 and he had a down year. Like in 2022, he was really good. And then Tim saying, Adoree is better than what we had, and showed some maturity to agree not taking 22 off of Drew Phillips, and actually even spun that in a way to commend Drew Phillips for how he's handled himself and how he's carried himself through the preseason. So yeah, I think that's good. And Kev, you're normally one up on the cap front, and I'm kind of throwing you a little bit of a curveball here, but Tim said, do we know where all the cap space went? Talking Giants said it was only 2 million and it was 12 million after 80's negotiation. Now, is that going to have something to do with practice squad and some of the moves? And obviously there'll be a reserve for the season, won't there?
Yeah, I mean, this week today, actually, the 51 rule goes away now. And now you have to pay for all 53 players that are on the roster. So you have to pay for all those contracts for the season. But also the injury settlements. We've come to injury settlements with players like McKenzie. So, they would have been paid a chunk of money out of this year's salary cap as a settlement for them to move on. So all those type of things all kind of come together now, and you have to pay for all those things now, and that's kind of where all that salary cap has gone.
Bear in mind as well that we've paid off the entirety of Aaron Robinson's contract as well, which was a strange one. I think that it's not a lot. I think it's like 1.25 million or something around that number. I say it's not a lot. It'd be nice to have 1.25 million. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't seem like a lot. But we could have paid him off a lot less. But I believe he could have recouped some of that money depending on where he'd signed. So it's kind of better to get that out of the way now. But I'm sure there's more manipulation to come. There are other contracts out there that can be jigged around. So I wouldn't maybe get too caught up in the weeds of the cap management just yet, because there's always ways to manipulate it in your favour. Anything else to add on Adoree before we move on?
Just about the number change as well. I mean, Drew Phillips actually offered Ford to give 22 back to him, But he actually went and chose number 21, which I believe was a close friend of his who actually recently passed, and that was his number playing growing up, and that's why he went for the 21.
Oh, right. Last bit of news. The top 100 player countdown is done on Tuesday. The top 100 players, hosted by Bob Pupper, reached the conclusion. I don't think it's really that much of a surprise that Lawrence Taylor came out topping the list. I mean, we could have all called that before the start of the 100, but the Hall of Famer, widely recognised as one of the best NFL players, let alone Giants players ever. 12 years, 132.5 sacks. He was also a two-time Super Bowl champion, 1986 MVP, and a three times NFL Defensive Player of the Year. So with those kind of accolades, yeah, it's hard to look past. If we quickly just go through the top 10, Andy Rospitelli is number 10, Sam Huff number 9, Eli Manning number 8, which I thought was interesting. I thought he would have been higher than that. I mean, he's still in the top 10. Number 7, Harry Carson. Number 6, Emlyn Tunnel. Number 5, Michael Strahan. Number 4, Frank Gifford. Number 3, Mel Hine. Number 2, Roosevelt Brown. And number 1, as I've already said, Lawrence Taylor. All 10 players are in the Ring of Honor. All but Eli Manning are in the Hall of Fame currently, because that's changing. And 5 of the players have had their jerseys retired. Hines, number 7, Gifford's number 16, Taylor's number 56, Strahan's number 92, and Manning's number 10 are all retired. While we're talking about retired jersey numbers, obviously Neighbours has now got the number 1 after that's come out of retirement. And did you guys see the Wandale Robinson comments on the potentially having a patch of the player whose number has been unretired? Shane, I don't know, what were your thoughts on something like that? You're on mute. He's in pre-season form.
Wow, pre-season, yeah. Shake the rust off there.
I'm just coming off the bench now. After that blitz to start the show, I'm just getting my breath back. That's all that is. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a tough one, really, because obviously the Giants have got a ridiculous amount of numbers retired, let's be honest. And then obviously with the number changing in the NFL a couple of seasons ago, where players can literally wear whatever number they want now, basically. When you've got as many retired jerseys as what the Giants have, it starts to get a little bit more difficult, especially those lower digit numbers. So I'm kind of torn on it. On one hand, I kind of think, well, it's been retired for a reason. Leave it retired. But at the same time, I'm also like, and I mean this with no disrespect to any player who's had the jersey retired, you played for the Giants 70 years ago. There's a good chance 70%, 80% of the fan base knows your name, and that is purely it. So should you then unretire it? But I think if you to unretire it, you kind of do want to still acknowledge it in a way now, whether that's a patch on the jersey, maybe even a decal on your helmet. There's ways that you could do where you could unretire it. Then obviously I don't know then what happens if the player, like let's say Malik Neighbours goes to have a Hall of Fame career. Number one's then going to get retired again, but who's it kind of been retired for? If you know what I mean. So then there's that potential issue, if you want to call it an issue. I think they do that quite a lot in the NBA, to be honest, where jersey numbers are retired a couple of times, or MLB or something. But retiring numbers even, it's more of an American thing, isn't it, than what it is over here. The only person I know who's had their jersey retired was Jude Bellingham for Birmingham when he left at the age of 17, 16, whatever stupid it was. But yeah, I do like the idea of unretiring it and acknowledging it, but then at the same time I'm torn because I think it's retired for a reason.
Jeff, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts there last week. We were talking about it, but I think this is perfect. I think it's a perfect idea. We do have a lot of numbers retired. So unretiring number 1 for Nick Neighbours, I think they went about it the right way. Talk to the family, John Mars, give John Mars blessing. I think having something, a badge or something on or on the jersey to show that this is a retired jersey, I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great idea going forward. And I think it should sort of replace retiring jerseys in the future. So instead of like just retiring a jersey, put a decal on that jersey to say that is retired in quotes. But I do think it's a great idea to show something.
There was also another sort of comment that I saw on X where someone was saying like retire it for a generation sort of thing. So just in chunks. Was that you say something like that, Kev?
Yes, that's what I was saying on the last podcast. Was like, so it would be retired for like 15 years, for example, and then it would be unretired. So you know that none of that person's peers would wear that number, so it would be retired for that generation, if you like.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there's a number that they could come up with. I'm sure there would be a number that they could come up with. So, just to touch on that Eli thing, because we've got a special guest coming on in around about 10 minutes. So, just to touch on the Eli thing, Kev. Number 8. It's weird, isn't it? It's 100 players. You're talking about 100 players, and Eli Manning sitting there at number 8. Is it recency bias that we just think he should be higher?
Yes. Yes is the answer. I mean, I think if you were to redo this poll or redo this sort of like put in 10, 15, 20 years, you might find Eli Manning, when he gets into the Hall of Fame this year, having that behind him, creeping up ahead of your Harry Carsons, your Emlyn Tunnels, these type of players. So I think it's the fact that, that he's recently retired, he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. And there's a lot of, I'm guessing the people on the panel were probably of a certain age, and they sort of like look back on their eras or the people they grew up fantasizing. Like, I mean, we didn't watch Lawrence Taylor play, but we know what a good player he was. Do you know what I mean? Or Michael Strahan, me personally, caught the very, very tail end of his career. Like the last season he played in was 07. So that's when I started supporting them. So these people are like, once you're a little bit removed, the star shines brighter, if that makes sense.
Jane, what are your thoughts? I mean, Eli in the top 10 obviously is a no-brainer for what he's done for the franchise. But yeah, do you think by the end of this year that could change with him? I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it, right?
I tend not to want to kind of get too involved in that because I didn't really see Eli's best years. So I saw Eli literally at the tail end of his career. So I have to judge whether he's Hall of Fame based on highlights and what a stat sheet tells, which I think is a little bit incorrect to do. You hear all the stuff about clutch and his playoff record and everything. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't know who Roosevelt Brown is. I thought that might have been like a former American president, to be honest with you. And I don't know who Mel Hine is either. So to me, I just think, Eli should be above them. It's probably a bit of ignorance on my part, not knowing who them guys are. But I just think, excuse me, you've won 4 Super Bowls in your franchise history, 2 of them with a quarterback who's not even in the top 5 of your best players ever. That's just the way I kind of looked at it and thought about it.
I think maybe we have to get this 100-year book and have a wee read of it ourselves, and brush up on all the history. I mean, I remember watching, there was what was it, 3 DVD box set thing that I watched in 2010, I think it was. And it was like all the Giants history and stuff like that. I think I might have to go back and rewatch it, and all these names will pop out at me.
I mean, you just look here, Bill Hunnett, 210 straight regular game starts. You would kill for that now. That was like one of Eli's best ability was availability, wasn't it? Like he just never.
I mean, has DJ even had 10 straight starts? Like, genuine question, because I feel like he's always missing time. I don't know. I'd be interested what the most games he's started in a row. Because I don't imagine it being very.
People in the comments, if you can find out for us, that'd be amazing. Try and figure it out. Shane will probably get on it straight away as well. He's normally good at that. Yeah. Tim also said, remarkable looking back. Eli won a Super Bowl within a contract, which is very true. And Steve brings up a good point. If Eli should be higher for his 2 Super Bowl wins, then so should Sims, and that's very true. You know, Sims just sitting outside that top 10 was quite surprising, to be honest. So there we go. Right, we are just waiting for one of the UK and Ireland Minnesota Vikings fan club to join us. While we're doing that, obviously we're now going to be moving on to doing the preview of week 1. We play at 6 p.m. UK time or 1 p.m. Eastern. And we kick off our season at MetLife at home under the bright lights. It's 1 p.m. The bright lights of the sun, the natural bright lights. And it will be the debut of our Century Red uniforms as well. And weirdly, the only time that they're going to appear, I get it in a way, like kicking off the centenary by wearing them, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that you've gone through all the fanfare of, I say fanfare, those pants are still getting a lot of hate, but you know, you go through all the rigmarole of getting everything done and you wear it for the first game of the season, then it's kind of forgotten about really by the end of the season. It would have made more sense to do it in the middle or just replace a legacy game. I think, have we got 2 legacy games this year in the legacy jerseys? I can't remember. Is it just the one, the Commanders one? Obviously, Shane's still upset about the colour rush not being available this year, so we won't touch on that. But I'm looking forward to seeing them. I really am,
Look,
and I'm looking
fair,
forward.
because we're on the topic and you've got me going now. Why couldn't we just change the away jersey this year to the colour rush?
Yeah.
I'd rather have seen that, and then you keep the colour rush. Everyone's happy. No one really likes our away jersey. Our away jerseys are shit. Everyone loves the colour rush, so why not just give that? And then everything, and then you might just go, you know what, we're going to roll with this for good. You imagine we go unbeaten in them colour rush jerseys. Everyone's going to be like, oh, keep them. Never get rid of them ever again. Don't bring that other one back.
Maybe they think they're too similar to the Bills.
Yeah, but then again, the legacy jerseys are very similar to the Bills as well, but in a different way.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But like, just touching on the like the jersey, wearing it for one game of the season, like, and then selling it, and then not delivering it on time to some people. But that's another topic. I mean, I have no issue with that. I think it's a lovely jersey to have as a memento for the 100 years. I mean, people go out and buy salute the service jerseys that are never worn, but they still sell those in loads. Like, so having this centenary sort of like centenary red jersey, I think it's a lovely addition. We won't wear it regularly, thank God, those pants. But I think it's a nice touch and it's a nice memento to have if you get one.
Any colour but khaki, wasn't it? Just they look like chinos. They look like chinos. I'm staying by it. They look like it. Right. Let's welcome in our guest, Darren from the UK and Ireland Minnesota Fan Club. How are you doing?
I'm good. Nice to see you, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. It's good. We've been talking about doing something like this for a long time, getting the, shall we say, the opposition behind enemy lines for a chat. But in all honesty, it's really for us to gain knowledge that we're probably lacking on your side. So let's kind of get straight into it, and we'll start with a bit of background for yourself, Darren.
Sure.
Why the Vikings?
Why the Vikings? Obviously, being from the UK and as like yourselves, there's probably, every time you ask, there's 100 reasons. Mine, like most of my sports teams, ends up being clothing. So when I was about 12 years old, which, as you can probably tell, was quite a while ago from my greying beard, I wanted a baseball cap. And I went into my local sports shop, and there was a selection there, and one of them was purple, and Donatello was my favorite Ninja Turtle. Purple's always been my color, so I went, oh, I'll have the purple one. And when I picked it up and got it, had a Viking on the front of it as well, so I was like, that's pretty cool, it's a Viking. And that was kind of the start of it, and then I kind of realized that actually the Viking related to the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL, and that kind of started my interest there. And over the years, started to get into it. Initially, in those times, much more difficult to follow American sport with basically gridiron magazines and a small amount on Channel 4. so that was kind of where it started. But then my real sort of engagement was more when Sky started picking it up, and I could realise I could actually watch it and get really into it at that point. But yeah, clothing and the fact that purple is my favourite colour was the combination of why I'm a Vikings fan.
That's great. I love that. Just a very different way of finding a team, sort of thing, than you probably most. But the more unique ones are the better ones. So let's kind of get straight into it, I guess. So let's talk about the sort of two, what I would classify as being the two big changes, I guess, for the Vikings this year. Kirk Cousins has gone.
Yep.
You've got Darnold and McCarthy in now. Obviously, only one of them will be appearing this season. And then Daniil Hunter has obviously gone from the defensive side, and he's been replaced with Van Ginkel and Grenard. How does the fan base feel about those two moves?
I think generally speaking, in terms of the offense, as you may have gathered, but the Kirk Cousin within the Vikings fandom was pretty much Marmite. You were either very supportive of him or you hated him, and you hated the contract because he was the first 100% guaranteed contract, and obviously with the Mike Zimmer and outburst that you might have read in the press recently of how he felt about that kind of impacted the ability to build up the rest of the squad. So I think most people were happy for that to happen. I think even the Kirk lovers probably felt it was the right time to move on. So I think there's a lot of positivity around there. Obviously, with Sam Darnold and his history, there's some nervousness around what we're really going to get there. But I think it's still seen generally as a positive move. On the defensive side, Daniil is a one of a kind type player as far as Vikings fans are concerned. So I think it's much more difficult to replace him. I think what's helped is that the defense as a whole over the last few years has not been up to scratch. So although we've lost a very good player, it's probably more that the sum of all of the parts is more important than the one individual. So losing him and bringing in, Van Ginkel and Grenard, and obviously being able to pick up Turner, which I think surprised most Viking fans that we were able to get both JJ McCarthy in our future franchise quarterback, hopefully, and also pick up probably the first or second best defensive player in the draft was the icing on the cake, really. So I think certainly that line, that defensive line is looking collectively better, I think, this year than it has done over the last few.
And speaking of Sam Darnold, I think Shane's got a bit more of a question on that man.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for jumping on to say, Darren. So the question I'm going to ask you is, obviously, a lot of Giants fans are looking forward to this game. It's the start of the new NFL season, 100th year, get some elite neighbours and see what we've got. But then another reason, and this is not meant in any disrespectful way, but a lot of people, it's because, like, we're facing Vikings and Sam Darnold under centre. It's a great chance to start the season 1-0. But from your side of the fence, are your fans kind of thinking something similar about going up against the Daniel Jones-led New York Giants?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this earlier, and I think the Giants and the Vikings, where they both are currently, in very similar places, really, in the sense that our weaknesses are probably very similar, in the sense that I think, certainly our secondary, certainly in the cornerback room, is a bit of a weakness. I think that's probably true with the Giants as well. So that's an area. We've both got slightly different paths getting there, but QBs that have got to prove themselves this year, because Daniel Jones 2022, which still hurts. Although I do think us allowing you to win that playoff game conned your franchise into paying all that money for Daniel Jones. So I'm not sure who the winner was in that, but but yeah. So I think it's an interesting dichotomy in that both sides have similar problems. In terms of Sam Darnold, there are some that just want to be, totally positive about it and not think about all the past Sam Darnold that we have seen. Looking at, it's true to say that Darnold's in probably the best position that he's been in terms of both the coaching staff around him, with Kevin O'Connell being a QB in the past, and that sort of offensive-minded side of things, having the weapons that he's going to have on offense he's not had before. But until he goes out there and actually shows it, he's looked good in camp, but he's looked good in camp before. That's kind of what Sam Darnold's done in the past. He's shown up in training camps and then seen ghosts on the field when he actually gets out there to play. So I'm not sure what to get. I think there's a little bit of wait and see, I think is what we got with Sam Darnold. He was always going to be the starter, and I think that was always going to be the right decision, even if JJ hadn't have got the injury. Unfortunately, I think obviously he now has the full year, so he's a bit more. So we don't have a fullback where maybe after the bye week in week 6 we might have been seeing JJ McCarthy getting some snaps. But yeah, I'm on the fence. I want to give him an opportunity. I think he could possibly have the best season of his career, but that's obviously within the context of what he's had previously, so let's not get too excited. But he might, as long as he's as a game manager, he might be okay with the weapons around him.
So with both teams being so similar, like you were saying, what do you think the Vikings have to do to actually come away with a win this weekend?
So the thing that worries me the most about, I think it's going to be in the trenches. I think is where we're going to have to win. I think if our defensive line, especially with Flores and his very exotic schemes and trying to confuse Daniel Jones with having players and blitzing 90% of the time from various areas of the field, I think if we can get that and get Daniel Jones on his back foot and a little bit nervous and a bit confused, I think that will help us, because I think that's where ultimately, if it's going to come down to whether Daniel Jones can play a clean game and Neighbours looks like he's the real deal for you. So and you've got other weapons around him. But if we can break that, then I think that gives us a chance to come away with it. But I'm not wholly confident in us being able to do that.
So if you look at the sort of other side of the ball, we've now got Brian Burns, we've got Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. Arguably, from our opinion, that's a top 5 trio in the league. We're putting them up against an offensive line that's obviously rebuilding, and we have a historically bad offensive line. How do you think you will fare against that trio? Because this is like their first chance, and they're probably going to be jumping at the bit a little bit to get going.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary proposition. Dexter Lawrence, I think, in the last times we played, had a field day with our offensive line. So that him alone, let alone the additions that you've got there, are scary. I think what might help us in a weird way with Sam Darnold is that he is more mobile. So I think one of the problems when we played you previously with Kirk is that he's a pocket passer. He stays there and there was no pocket. So, pressure up the inside was we just couldn't do anything with it. If Sam can, slide the pocket and move out a little bit, then that might save us a little bit. But our offensive line is, as you probably know, we've got pretty much the same. The only real change that we've got in there is Blake Brandell, who's been a backup for all of his time in there, and now the coaching staff, seem pretty confident that he's good to go to take that position. But again, it's an unknown. So that's going to be a struggle for us, and something that will be a key point in the game, I think.
I've got one more. Go on, Shane. I was going to ask if anyone else had a question.
Yeah, it's just a very, very quick one. I'm not going to go into it too much. Draft just went. You took JJ. I was not a JJ guy. Were you happy with that pick?
Yes, I think I am. At the time when it happened, I was not as high on him as a lot of other Vikings fans were, but I thought it made the most sense in terms of to go up and get some of the other guys that would probably been available would have been given up a large amount of draft capital. Obviously, we did have to jump up a little bit, jump up one spot for JJ, but I think he was always the one that I thought would fall to us, and I didn't particularly personally. Others might disagree, but I didn't personally want to give up a load of draft capital because I thought there's a lot more deficiencies that we had to resolve through the draft this year. Obviously, next year we'll have a huge amount of cap space that we can then start to use free agency. But this year we had to build from the draft. So yeah, happy with him. And then from what I've seen of him so far, he comes across as a very sound quarterback. Seems level-headed, wants to be great, is putting in all the effort, but classic Viking style. He then goes and does his knee, and we wait another year to see what we've really got.
Have you got anything else before I close out?
Yeah, so just wondering, so the offense, do you think we will see more of a grind and pound it with Aaron Jones, who's shown he could be a very good running back in this league, him and Ty Chandler, or do you think it'll be a case of just throwing it up to Addison and Jefferson, who are an outstanding duo?
It's still going to be Kevin O'Connell was still going to be a pass-first offense without question. I believe we're going to try and rely on the run a little bit more to just balance out the offense a little bit more, because last year, our run game was atrocious, and that wasn't solely down to our offensive line, although that was the easy thing to blame. I think Aaron Jones obviously gives you a whole different Swiss Army knife of tools, in that not only is he a great running back as long as he stays healthy. That's the big question mark, but he's got a point to prove. But coming out as another receiver as well, he gives you that option as well. So I think there's going to be more. It's going to be schemed up a bit more for Aaron Jones to excel, and give him the ball, whether that's out in space or through the run game in different run schemes. But we're still, there's still going to be the get it to JJ. And if you're doubling JJ, then watch out for Addison and watch out for for Speedy Naylor as well, who's probably going to be the wide receiver 3 and can take the top off it, and looks like he's a good route runner as well. So again, just got to stay healthy. That seems to be our problem at the moment, just keeping people on the field.
So overall, what's the expectation for this season?
For me personally, I think that as long as we get sort of 6-7 wins out of the season, which is where I think that's probably the best I can expect. So expectations are low. If we sneak into the playoffs, great, but I don't think there's too much expectation that we will. I think this is really keep things competitive, be in games, which we've obviously over the last few years been able to do. So keep that in play, but I think this is still building for JJ and JJ for 2025, but not to have the wheels completely fall off this season. I think that's best case scenario for me.
Well, and then the last thing, it's in the description of our video here, but Rob from your fan group is doing something pretty damn amazing. For the Jets game, Vikings Jets game at London.
Yeah,
so do you want to just explain that to everyone?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we've got the London game this year against the Jets, and as part of that, Rob, who's our charity lead on the committee of our fan club, has stupidly decided to do a charity piece for Young Lives versus Cancer, and he's walking from York, the birthplace of the Vikings in the United Kingdom, and walking from there to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is around 190 miles. So he's doing that for the charity. So yeah, that's going to be over the week leading up to the game, with him finally arriving in London at the Tottenham Stadium for the game. So he'll definitely deserve a beer when he finally arrives there.
I hope he has a good seat.
Yeah.
I'm most concerned he's going to have to then walk some stairs up the stadium to get to his seat. So yeah, we might need to get him some sideline seats. But yeah, so that's really impressive, and yeah, we're obviously very proud of him for what he's doing, and looking to support him as much as we can. And thank you for obviously giving us the opportunity to make other people aware of it and look into it, and put in the link in your description, so that if anyone wants to donate, even a small amount, is everything counts. So yeah, we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, so in the description down below, for any of our viewers watching live, watching this back on replay, or listening to this podcast after it comes out, if you go to the YouTube channel, go to the description for it, we have the link to the Just Giving page on there. I think last time I checked, Rob, was around about 700 and something pounds raised, which is a phenomenal amount. We'll put a donation in there from us as a podcast as well, because it's just an amazing cause. And yeah, if anyone listening or watching wants to add to that, then please do just look out for that link. But Darren, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to do this for the first time, and we'll definitely be doing it more going forward. And what better way? And let's see what happens Sunday, I guess.
Yeah, good luck. It's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to sort of set off both of our seasons depending on how that game goes. So yeah, it'll be an interesting game to watch. So yeah, we'll be watching a couple of watch parties across the country for our fans. So I'll be there in London to watch it with the fellow fans. So that'll be exciting. But thanks for having me, and yeah, appreciate it.
No, thank you, Darren. Take care.
Take care.
Good luck.
Bye.
Right, so there we go. That was Darren from the UK and Ireland Minnesota Vikings fan club. Cracking little chat with him. But let's get on to the Giants side of the preview. And three things have happened that are impacting this game from a Giants perspective. Jacob Johnson is back on the practice squad once again after his up and down roster manipulation. And in a corresponding move, the Giants have released wide receiver Miles Boykin, which leaves us a little bit thinner on the kind of wide receiver special teams role. Brian Daboll has finally revealed the worst kept secret in the entirety of New Jersey by saying that he's going to be calling plays this coming season. It's been unofficial since training camp began back in July, but he announced it on Tuesday after a meeting with beat writers and reporters. And I don't know about you, I'm just going to throw this out to both of you. I'm guessing you've seen it, but Dabes is a little tense this lead up to week one this season. Kev, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's I don't know, is tetchiness the word? There's just a little bit like, flippantness. He's not taking on these questions by the reporters. He just seems to be like a little bit more tense, a little bit more flippant with the reporters. I mean, he's apparently very funny and charismatic off camera. But when he's put in front of the camera and doing these type of interviews, he's just a little bit more salty. Coming up closer to the season.
Are we starting to see a little Belichick come out of Dabes?
I can understand why. He knows he can't have a repeat of last year. In all honesty, he knows he certainly can't be worse than last year. I've got no problem with it. I just see it as it's game face. It's game day at the end of the day. The kind of the time for little bit of a little cheese, but the time for talking is done now. Like the free agencies happened, drafts happened, OTAs have happened, training camps happened, pre-seasons happened. All that work is now put into action on Sunday. This is where we find out if the last 6 months of what the front office have been doing and the coaching staff have been doing has paid off. and I think he knows he can't afford a bad season. Now, I'm not saying if he has a losing season, he's going to get sacked. I think it's going to come down to if he was to have a losing season, the methods of them defeats will dictate if he's still in this job come the turn of the new year. And I think he realises that, and I've said before, I think that's one of the reasons why he stuck play calling on. Is because it's a case of if this ship goes down, I want it to be responsible for. I want to be responsible for it. I don't want to go down with this ship knowing I left play calling with somebody else. I think he recognises it and he realises it, and fair play to him because he's going to hold himself accountable, I believe. And whatever happens, he's going to try and do his best. And I think that's why he's done what he's done. So if he does end up in a losing season and he was to lose his job, he can turn and say, I did everything I could. I took over play calling. I made changes in the coaching staff, etc. So, and like I say, I think he realises that.
And then the sort of last thing on the news before we start getting into the players, we have the first injury report of the season. Please, can we have an injury report like this every single week? I've never seen it so small. Limited. Dane Belton with a back injury or back issue. Can't really call it an injury because he's still practiced. Drew Lock, abdomen. Michael McFadden, groin. Gunnar Olszewski, groin. Dan Duggan was saying that from what he saw yesterday, he would say that Gunnar probably does suit up McFadden. He's less confident about, which then obviously opens up the door for one of those backups like Musau, who potentially could slot in there. The Vikings have also released their injury report with 2 players on limited practice as well. Both wide receivers, both starting wide receivers, by what Darren was saying, in Jalen Naylor and Jordan Addison. But we're going to talk about offense first from a Giants perspective. And to do that, Kev is going to take over and sort of give his thoughts on what we really need to expect from tight end and the offensive line this game.
Yeah, I mean, so just like to give a bit of context here, like PFF have the position rankings of the Giants going into this season. The offensive line, they have them as 28th, receivers and tight ends is the 28th, running back 28th, defensive line 18th, linebackers 5th, secondary 31st, and quarterback 25th in the league. Those numbers are shocking, right? So we'll start with that first. But I think just going on with tight ends and stuff like that, I think looking from the tight end for this game, I think it's a case of do your blocking assignments, play sound football, and be an outlet for Daniel Jones if he comes your way. If he decides to like check down or give him an option, or and also if you do like a chip release, make sure you get something on that defensive end as well. Make sure you actually chip him and dislodge him a bit off his feet to help sort of like the offensive line block for DJ. And I think talk about the offensive line now. I mean, we've talked about this all off season. The offensive line. I mean, if you look at the offensive line starters now, you got Andrew Thomas at left tackle, you got John Runyon at left guard, John Michael Schmitz at center, you got Van Rotten at right guard, and Illuminor at right tackle. That's a vastly different offensive line to what we had starting last season. I mean, Illuminor comes in as a proven good right tackle. Proven. Not sort of Evan Neal draft brilliant at Alabama, projected to be a good tackle in the league. That just hasn't quite clicked yet for him. But Illuminor comes in with proven track record under Brasillo. Van Rotten, again, proven guard at right guard. They've got a connection. They've got chemistry. They played last 2 seasons together at the Raiders. John Michael Schmitz was hampered by a lot of injuries, and he's still got a little bit niggle injuries this year. But he's coming in the second year. He was the best center in that draft as well. And you got John Runyon, who's a very, very good pass blocking guard. Needs to work on his run blocking a little bit. But I just think, with those guys coming in, just need to play like above average. I mean, I think they could be good. I think they could be good, but we just need them for this week 1 game to come in and give Daniel Jones a pocket. Now, they did that in some of the preseason snaps. Daniel Jones was able to stand in the pocket and he had time. So I'm hoping he sees that and he goes in with confidence into this game that this pocket, these offensive linemen can give him that pocket he needs to be able to get the ball out to the playmakers. And I'd be remiss if I didn't have a shout out to Brasillo as well, the offensive line coach we got from the Raiders, because I just think he's come in and he's kind of like changed that offensive line room culture. And I think things will click under him. And I'm really, really hopeful going forward that, we can come in and just play sound, fundamental, good football. I mean, if we could do that at the offensive line and the tight end position, I just think we'll be able to get the run going. Don't get negative yards. Just chip away 2-3 yards. Just positive, positive, positive. I'm so sick and tired of being 2nd and 12, 3rd and 13. You're behind the chains, and it's so hard to get that back. So just positive, go forward. And with a running back like Singletary, who is like a see hole, hit hole type of player, I'm hoping that the offensive line will be able to put us on a good footing to move the ball progressively down the field.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow on from what you were saying about the running backs, this is really our first opportunity to see that new running back by committee approach that we're going to now have. We saw it in part last season when Barkley went down, but Breida and Eric Gray is a very, very, and Corbin, I guess, to a degree, it's a very, very different kind of perspective than Singletary, Tyrone Tracy, Eric Gray. I just feel like I'm much more confident with a running back by committee with those three players than I would have been led by Breida. Now, you're right. In preseason, we saw exactly what I wanted to see, which was downhill running with dirty yards. We haven't done dirty yards in so long. And as you rightly said, there is a very, very big difference between 2nd and 11, 3rd and 13 to 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6. Like, that's so big. And we need average pass protection from running backs as well. We just need average, it isn't just the offensive line, it's the tight ends and it's the running backs as well. They're going to have a hand in this. Last season, the Vikings were 6th best in opponent yards and 3rd best in yards per rush. We need to change that narrative from the beginning for them. Now, if you have a look at receivers, in preseason, the receivers were criticised for a lack of separation, but conservative play calling, we know it's rampant across the league in the preseason. They want to make sure that they protect their routes, despite the fact that they're just going to give them away to everyone week 1 anyway. But I'd really like to see a few big gains to Neighbours and Hyatts just to set the tone of the attack and show that we are going to be a deep pass kind of team and not these little dump offs that we were doing last year. We really, really do have 3 or 4 probably wide receivers that can hurt on every single level. With Wandale on the underneath, Neighbours can probably also, Neighbours can do it all, in my opinion, underneath, intermediate and deep. Hyatt getting the deep routes, and Slayton is very good at the intermediate and deep as well. So we really need to kind of go from there. And then Mr. Daniel Jones. You have a full complement now. The offensive line will give you more time. Trust them. Allow them to do their job without worrying about who Evan Neal has let through to attack you. Use your weapons. Lead your receivers. Let them get extra yards. And for God's sake, if you're going to run, your ACL has just come off a tear. Can you just slide? Like your neck as well. Just slide. Please slide. But Jones has played the Vikings 3 times, 817 yards, 4 touchdowns versus 2 interceptions. He has been sacked 10 times in 3 games, but he does have a completion percentage of 65.2. So I think that's really good. Shane, you were just saying privately there about some good comments that we just want to bring up before we do defense.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to bring up some of the comments that have been sort of put in the chat box. Thanks to everybody who's put them in so far, and carry on doing it for the rest of the show, please. It helps us interact a little bit more with you guys in particular. So just a few from James. Not sure we've improved everywhere. Offensively, we've probably got worse at running back and tight end. Defensively, you could argue D-line. We've got worse with no Leo and A-Sean. Safety's worse because Newbin's unproven versus McKinney. I think all that is quite valid points. Obviously, you know, some people will differ. I know that Chris has said that the D-line will hold. It's the secondary with the safeties and the cornerback is where we'll get cooked. And where was the other one that I seen? Sorry. There we go, Sean. Sorry. I think we're better at both running back and tight end. He prefers a running back by committee system, and we have some varied options there. Theo's going to surprise a few. I think our tight end play was non-existent. So, you know, I think there's good points from sort of both sides of the fence there as to maybe this team's not quite where it needs to be and not as good as some people think. But then I can also understand why people are saying, you know, things like running back by committee and I mean, Theo Johnson, love, I'll get on board with that all day long anyway. But yeah, you know why, you could be a surprise there.
So, Kev, just before we kind of wrap up the offense and hand over to Shane for his defensive kind of review, Mike Kafka, what are we doing with Mike Kafka? Like, what's his role? What do you think he's going to be doing?
Well, actually, I was thinking about this the other day. You know, especially well before Brian Dable confirmed he was calling the plays this year. You know, she had mentioned earlier about Brian Dable taking on play calling because, you know, he's the head coach. He got there by being a superb play caller, and you know his job's on the line, and he's going to go out his way, right? Understandable. I think only 3 head coaches that are offensive coaches don't call the plays, so everyone else does call the plays. But I think Kafka as well. So Brian Dable, he's the head coach and he's calling plays on the sideline. Now that's not a great view. It's not a great view on the sideline. But Kafka's up in the booth. Now Kafka is going to be relaying all the sort of like Vikings defense to Dable to make calls. So I think the relationship and how he interprets what the Vikings are doing and relaying that to Dable to allow Dable to make his calls, I think will be like it's massive. I think it's one of the key factors of this game. Whatever Kafka's seeing the Vikings defense do, being able to relay that back accurately to Dable for him to be able to make the calls, to be able to open up that defense, I think could be crucial in this game.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you know, we saw Kafka walking through the press box for the Patriots game. We literally watched him go down at halftime, down to talk to Dave. So it's not unlike him to be up in the booth, really, looking from above. So you make a great point there. James said, I was just about to ask the logic behind that, and then Kev answered my question. So well done, Kev. Right, Shane, on to you doing a solo defensive breakdown for the first one of the season. Are you going to make Dan proud?
I hope so. Dan, I hope you're enjoying your margarita or your vodka lemonade or whatever you're drinking whilst, you know, we're grafting it back here in cold, rainy England, as it's been most of today, at least in Birmingham. So yes, the first one I'm going to talk about, it's the most obvious talking point. It's been the talking point for most of the off-season, to be honest with you, and that's the secondary. One of the biggest concerns since free agency and the draft, and it also highlighted at times in pre-season, is the Giants secondary. There, as we mentioned earlier in the show, Adoree has been brought back outside that CB1 Tay Banks in his sophomore season. And let's be honest, guys like Cordell Flott and Nick McLeod, who they just don't look comfortable or particularly good on the outside, if we're being brutally honest. And that's one of the reasons why Adoree's been brought back. Now, despite playing for the Vikings, the man's going to need no introduction to anyone that knows anything about NFL. He's going to be Justin Jefferson. Last year, he became the 5th player in NFL history with 1,000 or more receiving yards in each of their first 4 seasons. So it is going to be a case of, can we keep him quiet, or at least how long can we keep him quiet for? Now, we played the Vikings twice in 2022. In the regular season, Jefferson had 12 catches for 133 yards and 1 touchdown. In the wildcard game, he was kept a bit quieter by then CB1 Adoree Jackson, where he only had 7 catches for 48 yards and 0 touchdowns. Let's say Jackson did a great job back in 2022 shutting Jefferson down. I think all of his catches, or maybe all of them apart from one, came on the Vikings' first drive as well of the game, if memory serves me well, in my old young age compared to some. So yeah, this time, however, whilst we still have Jackson, as already stated, he's no longer our CB1. And, you know, Tay Banks already sends up for the battle. He was quoted to the New York Post earlier on today or yesterday saying, I love the fact it's right into it, obviously referring to going up against Jefferson week 1. Just take it head on. This is what they drafted me for, and this is what I came here to do. This is what I want. I wouldn't want it any other way, really. He's elite, so he does a lot of things real well. He's great at contested catches. He's great at it. So, you know, no mistake about it, Deontay Banks, he's confident in his own ability. It's one of the reasons why he drafted him. That's one of the reasons why he's CB1 and he plays the position he plays. But he also recognises the talent that Justin Jefferson offers now. Yeah, outside of Jefferson, the Vikings could possibly have Jordan Addison, who they drafted in round 1 last year. He was limited practice in their most recent injury report. But the key battle is going to be Banks versus Jefferson, and exactly how the Giants and new defensive coordinator Shane Bowen are going to try and limit his impact. You know, it's a case of, do you trust Banks to do his job 1v1? Do you bracket Jefferson from the start of the game, or do you kind of adjust depending on how involved Jefferson's getting early on in the game? And then another group that I think is quite important is the pass rush, stroke the D-line, the trenches, so to speak. The investment in the D-line, when you break it down, is significant. You know, you've got 5th overall pick Kayvon Thibodeau. You've got Dexter Lawrence, who signed a $22.5 million per year, 5-year deal last year. And then also Brian Burns, who you not only gave up an early second round for, but you also gave him a little over $28 million a year over the next 5 years as well. Now, you know, that is some serious investment in my opinion. You need them to perform and ball out and show that investment and show why they were taken, where they were drafted, or why they were given the contract extensions that they were given. Do I believe they can do it? 100%. But, you know, I'm not expecting them to fly off the edges, and I'm not expecting 6 sacks or 8 sacks, you know, nothing ridiculous. But even if we just maybe see an indication of what we can come to expect over the coming season from the pass rush. And, you know, the pass rush is going to be important in relation to the secondary as well, because if they can pressure the quarterback, then, you know, receivers don't have time to get as wide open as if, you know, they've got a nice clean pocket. And then also the run D is going to be interesting. In 2022, Shane Bowen's Titans defense had the fewest yards per game on the ground at 76.9. And we all know how much the Giants have struggled to stop the run. It seems like it's a focal point every single year for this team. We need to stop the run on defense, and we just kind of don't do it. So, you know, it's going to come down to what the defense does in the trenches and what the secondary can do in the air.
Well, I think that sums up the defense pretty damn well, to be honest. There were a few comments during that. Just need Darnold to keep throwing to ghosts and we'll be fine. Chris was saying he expects the Vikings to run the ball a lot Sunday, and we need to do the same because we can't afford a shootout. And, you know, we're weak at secondary, and that's where we'll struggle and we'll give up points. And I think that's one thing that we will do. We will give up points this year, but the onus this year is for the offense to be able to keep up with teams, maybe not like we did last year, where there was a stat that I put in the write-up for the full 10-yard guide. And I keep looking at it because it's ridiculous in the terms of how kind of not bad we were, but just how disappointing there were on certain things. The Giants were beaten by 1 score 8 times during the season, and 2 scores 7 times. So seven of our 17 games last year, we were beaten by 2 scores, and that can't happen this year because we'll be annihilated. We really will. It will just, you know, it will go down the pan so quickly. But no, I think that's a really good roundup. That there's been a really good question in the comments about who we're going to have as Giants' first touchdown. So we'll address that in a second. But if nobody else has got anything else, is it prediction time? The first prediction of the new season.
Only Craig knows what me and Kev have picked. Like, I don't know what Kev's picked, and he don't know what I've picked, and that's why we're going to do it. I imagine during the season, Craig, we'll all individually send our scores. So if anything's very close or very similar, it's nothing we've not planned or discussed. It's just our initial instincts. I know Kev's going to have a dub next over that Viking warrior helmet.
Well, it's only right that we start off with the hostess, with the mostest, and that's not me. That's Dan. So I think Dan really should kick things off here. So Dan setting the tone with a 16-13 Giants win. Spoiler alert, that's the most conservative out of all of us on score.
And that's Dan.
And that's coming from Dan.
Wow.
So
Dan will be disappointed when he hears ours then.
Oh God, I don't know what he's going to think, but Kev, you are up next. I will reveal it once you've said the score. So what are you going for?
Well, everyone knows my score if you've listened to the Vikings UK and Ireland podcast this week, because I informed them of what I thought the score would be. I'm gonna go for a home win, lads. I think it'll be 24-21. Very, very close and cagey game, but I think we'll do enough to come away with the dub.
Now, when Dan sent me his score prediction earlier, he said, wonder what Shane's gone for.
So start of the 100th season, the centenary season. Is that what it's classed as? You know, sexy red uniforms, Malik Neighbours on show. I believe they got. Is it the top 10 from the top 100 joints? They're all going to be there, or they're going to have the Ring of Honor people there and everything. So are the joints going to ruin the party? Like, you know, always seems to happen. Whenever a team's doing something special, they seem to win. They seem to blow it, and ruin the party. So I'm going 24-17 to them G-Men.
Woohoo! Are you okay?
I'll tell you now, if they screw this Sunday, I'm going against them for the rest of the season. I will tell you that now for a fact for free. If they lose Sunday, I'm not backing the Giants again on one of these predictions for the rest of the season.
Is it a clean sweep?
It has to be.
Of course, it's a clean sweep.
And
And I've gone even more. I've gone even more balls out. I'm going for a 27-24 win. So we're going a little bit crazy on the scoreline here. Dan's Mr. Conservative, which is definitely the Twilight Zone or something weird's going on here. The Giants season brought to you by Alfred Hitchcock or something like that. But, I mean, a clean sweep for the first time this season, probably the last time this season. Or at least, you know, a clean sweep for the first 2 weeks, and then we'll readdress from there. But there we go. I mean, there have been some comments with some score predictions. If I go back, Kieran was at first, the 17-14 win, so not far off Dan's there. James has gone for a 24-14 win, which is probably the largest win number there for the Giants. Sean 27-14, so even further ahead.
Nice.
Chris by a field goal, 23-20. James has also said that 7 of Vikings' points are a pick six, which I don't think is something that Shane really wants to kind of see. is a pick six of Daniel Jones. James just put Shane just looking for an excuse to get back on the tank train. Giants win 21-14. Tim has put 20-10 New York. That's a cracking score. That, but probably a bit low scoring for scoregami, but definitely a scoregami on this podcast. And then Kieran said far too much positivity on it tonight.
Week 1, baby.
Yeah, week 1.
Week 1, you're undefeated.
Yeah, that is true. We are undefeated on the undefeated graphic. British Gridiron Films. That's a new name. So thanks for tuning in tonight. Cave on with a scoop and score. I'd love to see that. Absolutely love to see that. So the question earlier was from Chris, who said, who have you got for Giants first touchdown? Now, he said he's going for Singletary. Got James who said random one, Bellinger first touchdown. Shauna said Wandale for him. So got 3 in there. Shane, who are you going to put your neck out on the line for first touchdown of the season?
There is no neck on the line on this. It's going to be the offensive rookie of the year. And I reckon he's going to get 3 of the bad boys. And that's Leak!
I'm liking Sheehan tonight.
He's loving this.
I want the Giants to win just so we can have this Sheehan back. Beautiful, beautiful.
Come on then, Kev. Who's first Giants touchdown scorer?
I've been going back and forward. I leant towards Theo Johnson because I just think he's going to be a monster in the red zone. Part of me really wants Tyrone Tracy in a wee swing pass and takes it 40, 50 yards massive. But I think we'll methodically drive our way all the way into the red zone, get close to the goal line, and Daniel Stephen Jones III will run it in, those beautiful legs of his, beard and all.
Reading my mind. I'm going to go for somebody else. What was that?
I forgot we had him.
You just know it's written in the stars. Tim has put Gano scores first.
That's probably straight.
I mean, fair play.
Oh, God.
And you can't say Kay Adams' boyfriend either. I've got him already.
What, you've got him as your boyfriend?
Shh.
It's that beard. That beard does amazing things.
Oh,
Do you know what? I'll go for Theo as first touchdown scorer. Little tight end.
well, it's going to be him, and I can
Green
see
or
like
something.
being on the goal line, and him, Bellinger, Manhurts there, big, jumbo package, and a little play action, just pop it nice and high to Theo in the back of the end zone.
Also, we have
because he's from 1-0 Penn State.
Sorry, what was the record again? I didn't catch that. You broke up there, mate.
1-0, sorry.
1-0. Oh, 1-0. Okay.
Big much name.
Sorry, was that? No, yeah. Funny enough, we're 1-0 as well. Yeah, we're 1-0 as well.
Yeah, not like FSU.
No, not that bad. No.
Do you know what I'd like to see, other than an FSU win? Can we have a sequel to the Statue of Liberty?
Oh yes, that would be so cool.
Just get sexy with the play call.
I just want to see, right?
First play, first offensive play. Take a bomb.
Yeah.
Put
Forwards.
Streak. See what I did there? Malik on a streak.
Malik on a streak.
And then Danny on a dime.
I mean, there'd be serious man hugs being given out, like when we score Sunday night.
High at 5-1 to score any time. Got to be good value.
That is good, you know.
Yeah, I think that's good value. Not that we condone betting.
We haven't set up ours.
Because we don't condone betting, that's why we're not sponsored.
Yeah, if any betting companies want to sponsor our podcast for the season, please do reach out.
We have no problem selling out whatsoever.
No, not at all. Unfortunately, though, that is all the time we've got this week. We will be back Monday, as it's back to 2 episodes a week, as we review the game and obviously talk about our first meetup of the season. Anything to add before we go, boys?
No, just like, that we've mentioned it numerous times on tonight's episode, like, the season starts now. This is the business end. This is where we get going. This is where we find out if everything over the last 6 months has been worth it. But the one thing that is going to be worth it is watching it on Sunday with you guys and anyone who's coming down. If there's anyone watching, listening, viewing, reading on Twitter or anything that wants to come down, but is maybe a little bit of unsure, like genuinely, please do come down. We're a welcoming bunch. Anybody can come down at all. there's no. It's great watching Giants football anyway. When we watch it with these watch parties like we had last couple of times last year, it's absolutely fantastic. So if you are maybe shy or a little bit nervous or anything, like, just drop us a message genuinely, and we can give you our contact number, and you can come down and cheer the Giants on to get in that dub with the 3 touchdowns from League.
Fantastic. I love that. I mean, I'm buzzing for this. I mean, Sheehan's got me pumped for this game now. And especially our O line, it's so much more improved, and no one on their defensive line scares me. I know they went and got Grenard and Van Ginkel, but they're not world beaters. And the middle of that line, defensive line, Tillery and whoever else they've got, they don't scare me at all. Like, I want to dominate. I want our offensive line to dominate their defensive line, and their secondary is poor. I mean, the best player they've got is Harrison Smith, ex Notre Dame, touch the cap, but he's 35. He hasn't got the legs he's once got. I think they're there. I think we can protect Daniel Jones, and I think we can throw bombs. And I want to see us score 30-plus points, to be honest. I want to see us go out there and really sort of drive it home and come away with a convincing win. I want that sexy beard of Daniel Jones to be all over NFL Network next week.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to what Shane was saying about the meetup on Sunday. So the meetup was supposed to be with the full 10 yards guys at Box. Unfortunately, due to an issue with the venue, that has been canned. The full 10 yards guys are working on an alternative as we speak. We should have confirmation tomorrow, and as soon as we have confirmation, we'll put it out there as to what is changing. However, we do have a contingency plan, but it's not really something we can broadcast to the masses. If you are interested in coming to the meetup for Birmingham, please drop us a DM either on Facebook, where you can find us, Big Blue UK and Ireland, or on Twitter at Big Blue UK IRL. Just come and talk to us, because there is a contingency plan there. It's just not as easy to promote and kind of explain. But if we get confirmation from this other bar that we can show the Giants game, it's on like Donkey Kong, and we will be tweeting out the new location tomorrow, hopefully. So just keep an eye, but just reach out to us, because no matter what happens, and I'm not ashamed to say that this contingency plan has hit the wallet, but it will be worth it just to watch Giants football with a load of you guys. Right. As always, remember to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also hit the bell to be notified of when we go live. The preseason interview series, which has gone down so well, and thank you to every single person who has watched a single episode, will be finishing on Saturday night. Fingers crossed, huge guest. It's still up in the air a little bit. We're working on it. Should be going on tomorrow, hopefully recording, and then that's the last one, and you'll see that Saturday night. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. My thanks, of course, go to Kev and to Mr. Positivity himself, Shane. All of you watching or listening, we are signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.